Cryptocurrencies, I mean, look at this. Over the past year, the price of the tokens has rocketed. Bitcoin doubling, up 113.3%. Ethereum climbing 74%. And XRP, up a measly 42%. So what's the next catalyst? It could be the Bitcoin halving event 1 month from today, or 2 months from today, I should say. But my question is it buy the rumor, sell the news? So Bitcoin is coming up so much into that event, then it sells off after. We ask Anthony Pompliano, Pomp Investments investor in a Fox Business exclusive. What do you think of my theory?
So Bitcoin halving definitely matters. If you go back to economics class, anytime that you have something that happens in the market that everyone either doesn't know about or doesn't have the same opinion on, it's obviously going to have an impact. What we've seen is a demand shock with ETFs, so lots of capital is pouring in, and now we're going to have a supply shock. Right now, there's 900 Bitcoin a day that come into the market. When the halving occurs, we're going to go down to 450 Bitcoin per day. So naturally, if you have tons of demand and you have a decreasing incoming supply, the price has to go up to accommodate everyone. And we've seen this happen over and over and over again. I think that it may be less of a percent move, but in aggregate dollars, it will still be very, very meaningful over the coming 18 months.
So how high does the price go?
Look, historically, Bitcoin's price has gone up hundreds of percent. I wouldn't be shocked if Bitcoin went over $100,000 in the next 18 months. But also, I think that the ground is moving a little bit. There's a lot of different things that are occurring. New types of investors are coming into the market. There's new investment
Who are the
vehicles.
new types of investors? Because of this...
Well,
okay.
Bitcoin is now one of the favorite assets of any Wall Street investor. If you think about it, Wall Street investors have been suffering returns because they can't keep up with the indexes in the equity market. They now have the ability to put a little bit of Bitcoin. They can go buy a Bitcoin ETF and put 1 to 3% of their equity portfolio into it. And now that will juice their returns and hopefully help them compete against that index. On top of that, you now have them able to allocate capital to what's been the best performing asset for the last 15 years. Yeah. Wall Street, the smartest investors in the world, the biggest capital pools in the world, they've been boxed out from the best investment in the world. Retail investors got to front run these people, and they're ready to allocate. And that's what we're seeing, $10 billion flow into the ETFs.
November 2021, Bitcoin record high, 69,000. When does Bitcoin hit 69,000? Again.
Short-term price is almost impossible to predict. My guess is that we will see somewhere around there before the end of this year.
This year. Okay.
Something like that.
And then when does it go to 100?
I think that the halving is really this meaningful moment. And what we've seen historically is there's been 3 prior times where the halving occurs, and within 18 months, we have a new all-time high. Historically, though, when we've hit that halving, we haven't been at a new all-time high price yet. What we've been watching right now is these ETF flows are driving the price higher. We're now at $52,000. We were at $42,000 when the ETFs actually got approved. And so if this continues, there's a chance we could be near an all-time high. I don't know if we'll be at the all-time high, but we could be closer to an all-time high when the halving occurs, and that would be unprecedented in that
So
case.
Gary Gensler at the SEC, definitely solid for your industry, right? I mean, the spot Bitcoin ETF working in investors' favor. Do you think he'll do the same thing and approve a spot Ether ETF?
I don't see that happening at the next time that he can do it, which is in Q2 of this year. I think eventually they're going to have to approve not only Bitcoin, not only Ether, but many of these. And it's just going to become, if you go back to the 90s, people used to talk about internet companies. Now we talk about companies. Same thing I think is going to happen here. People are just going to talk about these assets. And it's not going to be, crypto, that's weird thing in the corner. It's just going to be this mainstream thing. And so they'll all get ETFs.
But play this out for me. Many people are starting to get their heads around Bitcoin. We can understand Bitcoin. Maybe Ether a little bit, but Solana, Dogecoin. I mean, how many ETFs could there potentially be? I mean, if you do for one, do you have to do for all? Or if you do for 2, let's say he gives a thumbs up to Ether, what about all the others?
Well, I think there's 5,535 ETF launches before the Bitcoin ETFs occurred, if I remember that number correctly. And so there can be thousands of ETFs out there.
Wow.
And when you see even just like SPY, right? There's SPY, there's levered SPY, there's the inverse SPY. There's all these things that you can do to actually get ETFs around a single asset. And so I think that's coming both for Bitcoin, but I think a lot of these assets are going to have ETFs in the future.
Does it feel like the Wild West at all? I mean, that's exciting in a way, because that's how you can make money, but it's also dangerous.
Volatility works both directions. When you're long an asset and it's volatile to the upside, you like it. When it's volatile to the downside, you don't like it because it goes against you. And so you need volatility for returns. If you look at the best performing stocks over the last 20 years, they were hyper volatile. Amazon went up and went down and went up and went down over and over again. But if you can stomach volatility and you've selected the right asset, a timeless investing principle of Warren Buffett's, buy great assets and hold them forever. I think there's a lot of people, there's hundreds of millions of people around the world that think Bitcoin is that next asset, and that's why they're buying it and holding it.
Can I ask you a personal question?
Sure.
What was the cheapest point you bought Bitcoin at?
I don't remember. I think the first time publicly that I was on television, I talked about it was in the bear market of 2018 at like $3,200.
Wow.
And they were laughing at me, but you know.
Because it was cheap or expensive at the time. I don't even know.
It was down 80% and they thought it was going to zero.
But you were a bull and you're watching it go back up. Aside from Bitcoin, what tokens do you like?
Yeah, I think that there's an entire basket. I actually don't want the individual tokens. My big bet right now is on these altcoin ETF providers. So people who have Bitcoin ETFs, but will provide the other ones. I do think that there is this really interesting thing where Bitcoin's price is up a lot, over 100% over the last year, but Coinbase outperformed Bitcoin. MicroStrategy outperformed Bitcoin. The miners outperformed Bitcoin. And so you want to own Bitcoin, but actually own Bitcoin itself, that you can take self-custody of it. But you also want to have exposure to these equities that will have kind of levered returns on top of the underlying asset. And so the altcoin ETFs, I think, will follow exactly what we've seen happen in the Bitcoin ecosystem. Diversification,
I guess, of the crypto arena. It just boggles my mind that with all the negative headlines that we've had, investors are still not scared.
That tells you that that is the opportunity, and all of the negative headlines are actually marketing for Bitcoin. There's two things that drive marketing campaigns for Bitcoin. There is no CEO, there's no executive team, there is no marketing department, but price is a huge driver. As the price goes up, more people talk about it, and then therefore more people understand what that asset is. The second thing is the negative headlines. There's a lot of people who, when they see someone attacking something, they actually say, that's interesting. Why don't they want me to buy that? Why is that thing a negative thing? And now that we have the internet, we have this kind of plethora of information, people are able to critically think for themselves, and Bitcoin seems to be a big winner of that.
If you were to value the entire cryptocurrency industry, what is that number?
If you ask the hardcore Bitcoiners, they would say it's $1 trillion and it's Bitcoin only. If you were to ask other people in the crypto industry, it's $2.5 trillion, give or take right now. Okay. I tend to think that this will become a tens of trillions of dollars in value over time. And really young people, this is a very large percentage of their portfolio. And so they're going to continue to allocate to these assets. The assets will go up in value, and it'll look very similar to an equity portfolio, a crypto portfolio, or any other asset that's there today.
Okay. So last question. What would you say to someone when they say, well, what's the use case for Bitcoin? It's not like I can buy a cup of coffee with it. I mean, technically you can, but.
So you definitely can do that stuff. I think the simplest way to think about it is right now, 50% of Americans have no investable assets, right? They simply save 100% of their wealth in US dollars. When they do that, the dollar gets devalued because of inflation. And so literally half of our population is getting their savings devalued away by inflation. Now there's an asset where you can simply save. You don't have to put all your money in it. You can put 1 to 3% into it. You can save in Bitcoin, and that asset will continue to appreciate at a faster rate than inflation.
You're good. Anthony Pompliano, thank you. Thank you for coming on.